Bonjour, Namaste, Shalom. Welcome to our conversation with Mr. Anuj Dhar, co-author of The Government Doesn't Want You to Know This, published by Vitasta. A former journalist, Anuj is a best-selling author who has authored or co-authored several books on the mysterious disappearance of Netaji Subhash Bose, the great Indian freedom hero. Anuj is also a well-known public speaker on this topic and is a passionate advocate for more disclosure on the events surrounding Netaji's life and death. Anuj, thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Thank you for having me here. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. Let's start with a 30 to 40-second summary of your book. How would you describe it to someone who has not read it yet or probably even not heard about it before?
It's very, very difficult, but my books, basically give you a summary of, they deal with the issue of Subhash Bose's death, which is like the JFK mystery in America. It's like in India's one of the leading conspiracy theories. In my research, I found out that this is not a conspiracy theory. It is factual. Whatever people have been saying in India for generations, that according to the official version of the history as we know today, Subhash Bose died in a plane crash in Taiwan. And that is the government version here in India. But in my research, I found out that is not true, as people have been saying for generations, and the story and there has been a major cover-up. The truth has been concealed from people of India. And in the course of my research in this journey for 20 odd years, uncovered a lot of evidence, which are, much of it is legally admissible evidence, I would say. So this is very much like, the JFK case in your country, but there's a difference. In JFK case, you hardly have any evidence per se. Here you have huge evidence available to demonstrate that what people have been saying through generations is correct, and the government's version is not correct.
And what motivated you to write this book? There is no shortage of freedom fighters in India who didn't get their due. There is no shortage of qualified people in India like yourself who could have written books. What motivated you to write about Netaji Bose and this book?
Well, in India, a funny thing happened that people accidentally become prime minister. Which has happened at least twice in my country. The people accidentally, they had no desire, but they became, prime ministers. In my case, I was accidentally got into this issue. I had no plans as such. My link, as it were, with Subhash Bose was like very, I don't know how to say, but how to put it. But then my grandfather was part of British Indian Army, and my grandfather actually fought against Subhash Bose because he was on the, the British Indian Army side. So he was in the Allied bloc. Both my grandfather were in the Second World War, and also two of my uncles. So they were in the, the British Indian Army. And so my grandfather fought against Subhash Bose. I never saw my grandfather. I look like him, but I never saw him. But I got to hear about him that they were not told who to fight. They were told to go and fight the Japanese. They were told to go and fight the Germans, which they did. So he went to the, the African sector. Then they were asked to to go and fight the Japanese in Kohima. And that's where they realized it was not Japanese, they were Indians on the other side. And that's where they came to know about the Subhash Chandra Bose, because Netaji's escape from India in 1941, everything about him was covered up by government. There was censorship was going on. So people did not know, and people in the military also, maybe the junior level, had no clue. So my grandfather, and what I got to hear from my family, sources, that they refused to fight. Everybody refused to fight because they were Indians on the other side. So I knew from my own family history that India's becoming free has to do with the simple fact that the British were running, the entire empire was basically running on the basis of the Indian Army. They were using the Indian Army not only in India, but elsewhere, different parts of the world, to keep a hold onto the empire. So that began crumbling because of Subhash Bose, because the army, probably became against the British, thanks to Subhash Bose. So I knew this thing somewhere in the back of my mind. So that was a connect I had with Netaji, that I knew from my own family sources that India's becoming free has to do with this person. More than that, I was not that keen. I was just not an average person. An average in Indian growing up, we all tend to like historical heroes, icons. We all have good vibes for Panditji and Gandhiji and Subhash Bose, Bhagat Singh. So I liked all of them. Thereafter, I was working in Hindustan Time in 2000, 2001. There was some commotion about Netaji's death, which was, of course, an intriguing thing to all of us. And it was just an accident that one of my seniors thought of doing an inquiry into this issue. And I had a little bit of interest by that time, because I was thinking in terms of getting a DNA test done on Subhash Bose's remains, because there was a commission of inquiry functioning in 1999 onward, and in 2000 when I became active. And there were a lot of news in media coming, at least in Hindustan Times, there were a lot of news about Subhash Bose death coming. I was thinking along the lines that this whole debate can be resolved if we can have a DNA test. I even tried and do a story. The story I could never, do because there was no scope for it. But I did write a story about Subhash Bose's death. Then one of my seniors thought of doing a proper inquiry, and they made me a part of it. There were others also. But once I got to it, I got sucked into it big time. So it happened not in a single day, it happened over a period of time. And it's almost like a movie. I mean, I do not know. I mean, it's almost like some kind of spy thriller that over a period of time, bit by bit, I've had my own experience of deep throat, the deep throat version in India. So this happened because of that. So it was accidentally, it's a journalistic, assignment given to me. And from where I built up everything. So, and thereafter I became very passionate about it. But it's not that I was born with a passion about Netaji. It was not that I was born with any kind of a preconceived notion as such. So I've always had an open mind. Even today I have an open mind. And I had always approached and beginning to start with as a curious to know what really happened. What is the truth? That is the only objective I've had right from the day one.
And Anuj, if somebody was to read this book, for people who will read this book, what are 3 or 4 things you want them to take away from this book? The book has a lot of material, and there are, facts, there are different commissions that you discuss in the book. There are different sort of parts of India that show up in the book because of the whole Gumnami Baba thing. What are 3 to 4 things you want them to take away from the book?
I would say that every page you will discover something new. I am a very, not only I'm a very camera shy person, I'm a very, by temperament, I'm very shy and timid. I mean, not very outspoken. I'm not a public speaker. I just let my passion out, which usually happens in a big hall when I have people around me. I still find difficult to talk to a machine, which I'm doing right now. So difficult for me to say what I have done. So that's a very difficult question. But what I've done that, in last 22 years or so, which started with me, but then my other friends joined in. We have changed the entire narrative about Subhash Chandra Bose in our country. It's become mainstream. In the book, you will find multiple, every single page, you will find something new. And my first big book, India's Biggest Cover-Up, published by Vitasta in 2011-12, it was based essentially on classified records. So when I'm dealing with classified records and telling you things which nobody has even touched in past, so almost every single page you will find something absolutely remarkable. Nobody has gone to that level. So what should I say? I don't know. All the angles that we talk about, that, for example, this entire narrative. Today when we discuss, I'm very happy you sitting other part of the world are straight away talking about Gumnami Baba. I remember last year we were on television. So Netaji's daughter was there, myself. I think it was on Times Now, and our Amish, the author. So the anchor introduced the whole subject matter the way I have started in last so many years, because it is my creation, this whole narrative, the framework, that when you discuss the Netaji death mystery, there are 3 angles: the plain cash theory, and then you have the Russian angle, which people talk about, especially General G.D. Bakshi, that Netaji was bombed up in Russia. He did not die in any plane crash. And the third angle, of course, is the Gumnami Baba angle, which has, because of our effort, has become so mainstream. It has been mainstream that people openly talk about it. So that's a great victory. From the issue was nowhere. These are the issues that nobody used to discuss even. Now today, the things have reached such level that everybody asks me about this issue and I give them answers. So in that sense, my books and my research have brought about a complete change in the way we look at things. And in terms of data and facts and figure, every page, I can show you there's something new. Nobody has gone even anywhere closer. And there are issues which are touching upon various aspects. It's not but Netaji, by the way. A lot of stuff about intelligence, spying, snooping. So the multiple things. It's not just Netaji in this book, because the book is about his death. So whatever is happening after Subhash Bose's death. So I'm sure that anybody, and I keep requesting people, I keep telling them, first of all, whenever you buy a product, you just see the reviews on Amazon and all that. So in my case, please do that. Now see our book and see the reviews and see what people have written. And then we have, and it's anybody who has any interest in history, mystery, intrigue, politics, security, intelligence. This is the book for you. This is not about, I'm not talking about what happened donkeys years ago. There's a lot of stuff about the current government, what has happened in recent times, so on and so forth. So very difficult question for me. You're asking me to blow my own trumpet, which I'm not capable of.
So, okay, Anuj, let's move on to some details then in the book. You write that the doctor who issued the death certificate for Netaji Bose admitted to Justice Mukherjee Commission that it was a fake. Can you tell us more about this?
You have asked me very right question. Actually, the whole Subhash Bose death mystery, can be summarized and can be proven with one thing, which is a doctor's certificate. When the death of Subhash Bose was declared, the British, Americans, starting with the Americans, they had a very proper inquiry done. And the crux of the matter was very clear that they were oral statements that Subhash Bose has died. There were people who were claiming, Japanese and one Indian, Habibur Rahman. But the problem was that the oral, there were lot many contradictions in the oral accounts. And we all know that if you have oral accounts are riddled with contradictions, no court of law, no commission, no inquiry, nobody will believe you. If you are claiming that you have seen a man burnt alive in front of you, you should be able to recall everything very clearly. I mean, today we are seeing what's happening in Israel. When 26/11 happened in India, I can recall with absolute clarity what I was doing that point of time, because this, suddenly breaking news and, terrorists have just stormed into a hotel in Bombay. 9/11, I remember very clearly, vividly. I remember 9/11, what happened. I was in my uncle's home. I turn on the TV and I see the New York, there's a plane has hit. Everybody thought it was an accident. Then the second plane hitting, everybody watched live. Because by this time, India, we were getting the live streaming. CNN was coming back in 2000, 2001. We had already entered that age. I will never forget that day, what I was doing at that point of time. So there are certain things in life you'll never forget, no matter what. So this is a tragedy where a very important person, VIP, which is Subhash Chandra Bose, was burned alive in front of 5-6 people. All of them were supposed to give similar version. Now the problem was that even the Mr. Habibur Rahman, who was the most important witness, his own versions differed with each other. He was telling one story to the Americans, the other story to the British, and they were not adding up. Entirely different stories. So the only way to conclude, to find out what the reality is, or to prove or disapprove, they didn't have the dead body. Japanese did not keep any pictures of it, which is also suspicious. There were no contemporary records. So they were wanting to check only one thing: the doctor's certificate, the hospital records would be the biggest proof of his death. The hospital records and the cremation records. So this was somehow not possible for so far as we know as of now, because I'm sure there are many more documents which I have not been declassified, but whatever we know so far, because of the situation of the war came to a close suddenly, and the British were in the mood to go back to, so they left it. They were confused, so they left in the middle of 46 or so. So they were not very clear what had happened, and they were not able to do a checking in Taiwan. So it happened only later on. So, and your question is about it. When it comes to Justice Mukherjee, he had the best insight. So not only the records were not there, the records were in somebody else's name. So this story of Netaji was absolutely not proven. In fact, it was disapproved completely. In this scenario, the most important witness was Dr. Yoshimian, who luckily was alive. He, I think, died after 2007 or 8. So he deposed before Mukherjee Commission. He was examined. He was mentally fully alert, no problem. And he was like asked that there's a certificate of Netaji's death which you have issued in. Is it you? He said, yes, it's me. And unfortunately, the certificate was issued in 1988. And they had to admit it on record. Yes, I have done it. He says it's a mistake. So why should you issue a certificate like this after so many years? So a doctor cannot. And the problem with that certificate was not matching with the records from from Taiwan of 1945 vintage. So there's a doctor who's the number one witness to Subhash Bose's death, along with Habibur Rahman, was caught issuing a fake certificate of Subhash Bose's death in 88. In no court of law in the world, before any judge, this will blow your case to smithereens. I mean, it's not a joke to issue a fake certificate. Imagine this was done in the case of JFK. How would the Americans behave?
So the doctor admitted that he issued a fake certificate, but did he ever sort of explain why?
No, he did not explain, but the Mukherjee Commission report makes it very clear. The certificate is available. I have posted the copy on Facebook. The doctor issued it in 1988. And the details given in this certificate are not matching with the details given in the actual data which is there in Taiwan of 1945 vintage.
Okay.
And Dr. Yoshimi's statement is also not matching with what his government is saying. The government of Japan is not saying the other doctor issued the statement, the certificate. It was in a different name. Yoshimi is issuing a different certificate with some other name. So the problem with the whole entire case of the statement of Mr. Rahman is not matching with his own statements. Number one, Mr. Rahman's statement is not matching with Yoshimi's statement. Now, Yoshimi's own statements are not matching with each other. And problem with Yoshimi's statement, it is not matching with the statements of the government of Japan. So it's like a complete mess when you bring whole thing together in one place and start examining. What has been happening, especially in India, there's a racket going on in the name of his, there's a political whole thing about behind it. And there's people who are masquerading as historians, essentially they're politicians. For example, one sitting in a country, Professor Shogoto Bose, Harvard University, whatever professor. So this gentleman is a professor in your country. In my country, he's a politician. He was a member of parliament here. So we all know which all people go and contest elections in our country. I'm talking about Lok Sabha, not Rajya Sabha. So what they do this cherry picking of picking out certain stuff from here and there. And one good thing to convince people is to selectively take out name of foreigners, Americans and British, and selectively quote only that relevant part of the information, which is somehow will prove your theory. So they are quoting from Yoshimi's statement, and trying to show that he was being truthful, but there are hundreds of other instances where Yoshimi was not correct. So, like say, in our country, history is more about politics. And more so in the case of Subhash Bose, where people have made up their minds for reasons political, that I will push this story because it is helpful for me to push this story, because if I do it, the government's, the doors will be open for me for whatever I do in future.
Okay. You document in the book that in 1972, a Government of India file pertaining to Netaji Bose was destroyed. Why do you think this happened? And can you tell us a little bit about it?
It is illegal because the records, how they're meant, we got everything from the British. Recently we had this, our new parliament, coming into, the parliament moved to the new building. So everybody was talking about all big things, but the fact of that everybody knows that this Government of India 1935 Act is the foundation on which the Indian Constitution has been come into being. India is run by a system which is British created the whole thing here. So the system of documents, how they're maintained, they're classified, the rules are virtually the same in America and England and all. India has the same rule. You will retain a file which is sent for 25 years and then it will go to the National Archive. And the rules are very clear from the days of British that if a file is on a very important subject, a controversy which has been, creating problem, people are very agitated about something or the other. If as a matter of public interest, those files have to be written in National Archive. That's a clear-cut rule. It was in force in Panditji's time. So this file on titled Circumstances Leading to the Disappearance of Subhash Chandra Bose. So it was created in 1955-56. In 1970, there was a commission of inquiry set up by Government of India under public pressure. Government of India from day one was not keen to inquire into this case. So let's be very clear for very start. Whatever they have done under pressure. So in 1970, Government of India was forced to form a commission of inquiry under G.D. Costa, who was a former Chief Justice of the Punjab High Court, sentencing judge in the Mahatma Gandhi murder case. Now, when the commission is functioning, now according to the law of Commission of Inquiry Act, according to the law, if a commission is functioning, inquiring into a particular matter, the government is supposed to share all the information and the files with that particular commission or committee. And under no circumstances you can destroy a file which is about which the commission is functioning. So here you have a commission of inquiry functioning from 70 to 74 about Netaji's death. And the Government of India decides in 1972 to destroy this file, which was kept in PMO, which is completely about Subhash Bose's death. And that's why red flags were raised. Back then, Mr. Khosla was a friend of Mr. Nehru's. So there were different times, he was Indira Gandhi's biographer. Can you imagine the gentleman is doing an inquiry and then he's also writing a biography of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Imagine Justice Warren had done the same thing. You're inquiring into JFK's death, but you're also writing the biography of the President of America. You think the people would believe what he was at? So this kind of things happen in our country. So there was a commission functioning. And this file, rather than share with the commission, the government destroyed it. It's out and out illegal. Had it been some other issue, hell would have broken loose in our country. Imagine they had done the same thing with regard to any file pertaining to Mahatma Gandhi. And if the Kapoor Commission, which was functioning in the 60s, Kapoor Commission would have been, very, very annoyed. In fact, Rajiv Gandhi assassination case, this Jain Commission report, they are not very happy because certain files are not available. It is illegal to destroy certain files. And Indira Gandhi was asked this question back then in 1973. Why have you done so? The answer she gave is, I don't think they add up to anything. So that's very serious thing.
Yeah, that I was amazed when I read that, very surprised and shocked. In the book, you also argue that many government experts, including handwriting experts, misled or lied to the Mukherjee Commission. Can you tell us more about this?
Multiple. They were not being very helpful because this is Mukherjee's no more. We used to talk to him, and once we were talking to him about some other matter. This is fairly recently. He never opened up when he was, as long as you're chairman, he was a old-fashioned, stiff upper lip kind of a judge. He never uttered a word other than exchanging pleasantry. But in last few years before he died in 2021, we had opportunities to talk to him. And then there were people who were known to him at a personal level, so they were able to talk. So he was asked this question about, what do you think about, such and such people and the people in government? He gave an indirect answer. He said, look, I have been, in courts of law all my life. My father was a very well-known lawyer. And Justice Mukherjee's younger brother is a big shot lawyer still. His sister was also a lawyer. So this man has his entire family is in legal profession. And he himself is a very well-known criminal law expert, Supreme Court judge. He said, I see people I can make out in half an hour whether they're telling truth or not. So there are many things you can't write, you cannot say, but when you look at the people, you can, from their body language, etc. So he said there were people bluffing, they were not being truthful. So you can make out. Even I could make out. I used to go there and I would see people, appearing before commission, be it Pranab Mukherjee or others. You can make out very easily from their body language and the manner of speaking, the way they were, resenting being asked such questions. They were not forthcoming. They were having no enthusiasm for telling the truth. They were trying to so that sort of a thing. But then to come to the main thing, example, there are multiple examples. For example, take the question of handwriting expert. Now, the Gumnami Baba story, which probably now is the heart of this matter now. If somebody were to say that why should I believe that he was not Netaji? So the reason for not believing that he was not Netaji, for believing that he was not Netaji, is that the government forensic reports, DNA and handwriting showed that he was not Netaji because the oral and documentary evidence is showing that he was Netaji. So you should not believe that he was Netaji because there's a DNA report which says he was not, and there are handwriting reports that say he was not. Let's take the handwriting report. When anybody, expert of handwriting gives a report, and especially when the case is very sensitive, like it's a very well-known case, which has a bearing on the history of the country and people are very keen, one would expect the expert to give some reasoning as to why he or she think that the handwriting is matching or not matching. Merely writing in one line it's not matching, it does not inspire any confidence. So what the government expert, for example, the FSL Calcutta report of Dr. S.K. Mandal, just 2-page report. First page, he just wrote his name, etc., the name of the lab. Second page, he said it's not matching. Just to contrast that, it's a long story, and we took the handwriting samples of Gumnami Baba to an American expert, Kurt Baggett in Texas. So Kurt has no axe to grind. He did not even know me. In fact, I have not spoken to him even today. So my friends in Indian American friends, they approached him, and he was not told what it is all about. We simply asked him, there are 2 different samples of handwriting coming from 2 different sources in English language. So you just check and tell us whether or not they're the same people or different people. And Kurt has given us a detailed report in 48, 49 pages explaining that why he was person the same thing. Then we arranged for a television, CNN IBN in India, because that was the Indian branch of CNN, if you can call it. So they had a show in which we wanted Mr. Mandal to come. He refused to come. He was afraid. And Mr. Kurt, in the early morning, Texas, like it was India time, in the evening, God knows, 5 o'clock, that time. So you can imagine 5 o'clock must be early morning in Texas that time. The old man woke up and he gave very nice bites, which anybody can see on YouTube today. He was able to come openly say that this is exactly what he's the same person. So what do I do as a researcher? Shall I put my money on Mr. Mandal's report, which has no reasoning, or shall I put my money on a report by a foreigner who has no axe to grind and is a person with expertise, earned over 40, 50 years of his life, and he's giving details that, and this is the same with other experts. So government experts came and gave wrong, they fed wrong stories. And I would, of course, say that Mr. Mandal has no enmity with Subhash Bose. The poor man is a government servant, so obviously he's doing the government's bidding. So none of these experts are anti-Subhash Bose. In fact, in my long experience of dealing with people, because Netaji has so much of respect among Indians across all divides, so we get support. I give example. We have in India the thing called Right to Information, which is the Indian version of Freedom of Information Act of America. Now, anybody can go and ask questions, and government is duty bound to answer, give information, unless it is national security information. So there was an instance of, I asking them about an information with the Indian Foreign Ministry, and they answered that this is national security information, can't be given. So the gentleman from the ministry, say fairly senior officer comes. So we have a hearing before the commissioner, and he states in front of him that, I can't give this information because so on and so forth, because these are the rules and all that. And when we leave the room and he pats me, he said, "You're doing a good job. Now look at this file." So off the record, he showed me everything. So people are not anti. So when especially people who are in the security service in my country, like in the intelligence, and they are hardcore patriots. So they're not anti, they are 100%. The problem with the Netaji is a political issue. So system people are, you will bump into people invariably, and they will tell you the truth. Look, this is what it is. But as a government level, the government has been, hiding, concealing. In fact, my book's title itself is that government doesn't want you to know this. So that's how it is.
So just one clarification question, Anuj, on this issue. As I read the book, my understanding was that you paid for the handwriting expert from your own pocket, the foreign handwriting expert, to get these.
Because no, my friends in America paid for it. They offered help. They said we can carry out a DNA test. I said I don't have DNA samples. We have the handwriting. So these my friends in America, they who paid for it. So it went from our side. So they are still my friends. So right. Yes.
Okay.
So but anyhow, we are getting it done, and we didn't want to get it done for free. Right. It's a very normal thing that we will hire an expert and we'll pay the expert money. So, okay. So it was, but we had other tests done in India where the expert refused money. He said, "I will not take money," because after he, found out who the person was, he said, "I will not take any money."
And I guess that goes back to the respect issue you were talking
because
about.
Because of the Netaji. He said, "No, we will not take any money. For this is Netaji, and I will not take any money," because luckily for me, because we consulted 3 experts. So essentially, there are 2 government reports which are negative. We got 3 reports which are positive. The other 2 reports were from Mr. Ashok Kashyap, a very renowned private expert in India. So he took some money in advance, but afterwards, when he found out who this man was, he refused. He said, "No, I will not take." And because it is Netaji, and it will be, I will not. Number 2, then the first report was given to us when I was in part of Hindustan Times, because I approached him as part of Hindustan Times investigator, Mr. Bilal Kapoor. He was top expert of handwriting in India. In fact, his report is the best. And he was the, very senior government, director of the forensic lab, and that's all of a thing. He also got the lifetime achievement award from the Indian Science Congress, trained in America and Switzerland, other countries. So he was the number 1, expert in India, within the government, Ministry of Home Affairs. But post-retirement, he was very, 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 people, the government, it used to come back to him. So he used to give deposition courts and so on. So Mr. Kapoor also was a very religious man. So once he found out, after checking that this man is the same person, he said, "No, I will not take any money out because this is Netaji."
So Anuj, you said this a few minutes back, that the whole debate about Netaji is sort of political or it has become political. And yet you've also recognized in your public speeches as well as in your book that all governments seem to have obscured the truth about Netaji, whether it was Congress or BJP or Janata Party or whichever. So why would no Indian government, regardless of its political leaning, have no interest in uncovering the truth about Netaji?
No. So I'm being fair. So I'm saying that the government doesn't want to know this. I've never said this BJP or Congress.
Right.
So that is why this issue, it has become difficult. No, this is a very long and winding story. When government takes a stand, so there are many, implications. And there are complications. And these complications are such that it not been as of now till date for any government of India, whether they have taken interest or not. The person who came closest to unraveling the whole thing was Morarji Bhai. And he at least came closer to rejecting the plain cash story, which he did. But he won't go beyond that point. And so this is a fairly complicated question. I mean, we will probably get into it later on, but then all the governments have done. The only, the saving grace, I would say, whenever we have whatever developments or whatever positive steps have been taken, for example, there were demands that India should take up the issue of Netaji with Russia. It was never done as long as Congress party was in power. For the first time, it was done when VP Singh became the Prime Minister. So every time there is some positive development in the Netaji case, it was done when there was a non-Congress government, be it VP Singh or Devi Gowda. Even Narasimha Rao, I would concede in certain portions he was better than others. Narasimha Rao, I mean, I do know that he tried to find out about Russia, what happened there. But whatever was found out is not in public domain. So we do see those signs. But insofar as the Gandhi family is concerned, they were totally closed. The mind was closed. At the same time, we detect signs that the government was always active. It's not they're very serious about Subhash Bose case. They know it's a very controversial matter. So better keep your mouth shut and don't allow people to, don't start a controversy on this because we will be on back foot. So, but then the only saving risk is whenever there's a non-Congress government, some developments have taken place. And the number two, whenever there's a non-Congress government, people can at least talk about it. God forbid, for example, I'm very clear about it. God forbid now this next election, suppose this Ghamandiya alliance were to come to power in India, we will not be able to talk to each other. The people who impose emergency on the country, do you think they'll allow people to talk like this? Already people are becoming so uncomfortable with the freedom of expression which has come our way thanks to Twitter and Facebook and other things. These are things which are alien to our culture. People don't believe in the freedom of expression in my country.
So, Anuj,
I will get into the question why the government is not doing because it's fairly complicated as we proceed further. But as of now, I am blaming everybody. I mean, the government is concerned, but then the nuance is that every time there's a non-Congress government, there is some development has taken place. And not that, yes, government has made an attempt also. So the attempt was made by Morarji Bhai. Attempt, in a sense, was made by Atalji also, because had Atalji were not there, there would have been no Mukherjee Commission of Inquiry. So there are some nuanced differences.
Okay. Now, you also take to task in the book the family of Netaji Bose, and you say you've been very critical of the flip-flops of the family, his siblings, nieces and nephews. Why would his family be less than interested in finding the complete truth about what happened to the best known member of their family? The only reason the Bose family is still well known in India is because of Netaji Bose. So why would they not want to know about him?
Not just in India and abroad also, but let me just because the biggest, one of the big problem for me is these questions are so profound. They're putting me. And if I'm expected to answer them in 5 minutes, difficult. I speak for I mean, people enjoy when I come, especially when I come to US and all that. And I have the PowerPoint presentation. I show you documents and I speak. When I tell you that the Americans did not believe in the plain cash, I'll show you the document. I will not say just verbally. The thing is, when you say the family, you said sibling. No, sibling did not believe in the plain cash story. What do you mean by Subhash Bose? What do you mean by Subhash Bose family? Now, in Subhash Bose's family, none of Netaji's siblings, his sisters and brothers, believed in the plain cash story. So they were on our side. So I may not have met them because I think the last sibling probably died in 1984. But he died, Netaji's youngest brother, that my brother did not die. And his son used to repeat it all the time. This famous bomber dying model who also died recently, Radhendu Bose. Now, in Netaji's family, there are 3 most important people. Whoever talks about Netaji's family should know this thing. Of his entire family is a huge joint family with so many nephews, nieces, and sisters and brothers. There are 3 people who count most. There was another older brother of Netaji who was India's first cardiologist, but his view is of no little consequence. He also did not believe. As I said, none of the Netaji brothers, sisters believed. None of his nephews and nieces believed in the plain cash story, did not support it. Only 1 or 2 members who joined Congress party, they became, they took the government side, especially Dr. Shishir Kumar Bose, whose son is the professor of Harvard, Shogota Bose, the Harvard University professor in your country. Now, the 3 members of the family count the most. First is Sharat Chandra Bose, Netaji's older brother, is Mejda, middle older brother. and he was a very eminent lawyer. His statue is there before the Calcutta High Court today. He was a member of for some time the interim government also. He was a politician. The only two siblings are in politics: Sharat Chandra Bose and Subhash Bose. In fact, Sharat was Subhash's guardian, the closest person to him, to his brother. And most of Netaji's grandchildren that we hear about, be it Professor Sugato Bose or anybody else, they all are essentially the grandchildren of Sharat Chandra Bose. Almost everybody that you comes across. Ashish Ray in London, who's the main Congress party man in London, he's also the grandson of Sharat Chandra Bose, a cousin of Sugato Bose. All of them are. So Sharat Chandra Bose's stand was, he was in jail, he did not know. Very smartly, people like Sugato, what they've done, when we read the book, they will quote only one part of it, that my grandfather was in jail, and when he heard the news, he was devastated. Everybody was devastated, and Gandhiji was devastated. Panditji was in Abbottabad when Netaji died, and he also felt very bad. But what they don't tell you, that Sharat Bose himself recorded later on, openly, that when I came out of the jail, I made my own inquiries from sources within India and foreign. He traveled across Europe, talked to multiple people, including like a journalist known Lily Abegg, for example, and multiple sources. But this source, a very Swiss journalist, Lily Abegg, Lily was there in Japan when the plane crashed, and she had access to the Japanese. So likewise, Sharat had multiple people giving information in different parts of the world. Sharat had Habibur Rahman invited to his home, and he examined him for 7-8 days. And he gave out his finding that he's only doing whatever his boss has told him to do. So Sharat Bose was very well informed. So Sharat's view was very clear before his death in 1950 that my brother did not die. This plane crash is a hoax. And he went on to make a public statement, which none of his grandchildren will talk about, but it is public, that in 1949, my brother is alive and he's in China. Now, this China theory is coming only in Gumnami Baba Beta. No other person talks about the Chinese angle. Otherwise, you have only Russian angle and the Taiwan, that's all. But the Chinese angle comes only in the Gumnami Baba angle. The second most important person from the family is Suresh Bose. Suresh was younger to Sharat, older to Subhash. He was a magistrate. His importance was that he was made the member of the first open inquiry committee which Free Indian government was forced to establish in 1955-56. He was part of it. So he saw the evidence. Former magistrate. Then he went with the commission. He examined all these people on record. So he was part of had access. He gave the first report rejecting the government view that his brother has died. And he said very clearly that the Habib is just telling what he has been told, and all these things are not adding up. So this is the view taken by the other brother who knew everything. And Suresh died in 1972. So he deposed before the Khosla Commission, and he made public and clear statement that my brother is alive today. He was asked, please tell us more. He said, no, I will not tell you anything more because it is not good for him. And he said it on oath, on record, my brother is alive today. So we find links that he was linked to Gumnami Baba. Third most important person in the family is Emily Schenkel, Netaji's wife. We talk only about the daughter. We can discuss it separately. But daughter was barely 2 months old. And the daughter I have met, Dr. Farb, the problem with her, there are good points. The problem with her, she has been very close, sentimentally attached to those members of her family who are linked to Congress party. Sugato Bose, the whole cabal of his family, who is doing business in the name of Subhash Bose. So she is inspired and by these members of her family who are linked to Congress party. Her mother, who died in 1996, she knew far better. And Emily Schenkel's view was very clear that my husband did not die in any plane crash. She refused to accept the ashes as Netaji's, which are touted as Subhash Bose's ashes in Japan. Had it not been for her, these ashes would have been brought to India. In fact, government's last attempt to persuade her was made in September 1995. This Pranab Mukherjee went. Pranab Mukherjee is a very disliked figure among the Bose family members. So Pranab Mukherjee, as India's foreign minister, flew to Augsburg, Germany, and tried to persuade Emily Schenkel to agree to government stand that Netaji died in a plane crash. So she did not even want his presence in her house. So he was kicked out. So Pranab Babu went out and he took Netaji's daughters and son-in-law with him. So when you talk of family, I think these three are the most credible people. The other, some of them are in Congress party, openly, overtly or covertly. And regarding daughter, she's emotionally attached to those people, so she's also, floundering on these issues by making statements and, which are most undaughterly for any person. Was not even supportive of declassification. I mean, can you imagine a lady who's like living? She's a Western. She's like she's a professor in Western of economics in Germany. She's a Westerner. I mean, these are very common things in West to seek for declassification. It may be a new bird in my country, but in those countries, very open. Why would anybody not want declassification? So we tried when we started the whole process of declassification, this whole momentum. So we had members of the family, Dr. Favre's nephew, nieces, her relations were in my touch. So we tried directly, indirectly. She should be the first one to talk about it. She did not. She showed no interest. In fact, when Modi ji actually announced that I'm going to declassify these files, first Mamata Banerjee and then Modi Gam, she was not there. All in sundry Netaji's relatives who have never taken his name, they came from different parts of the world. And she had no time to come to India and because, so that's a problem. So things are not what they seem. That's what the problem with this whole issue is. People tend to, make a judgment, reading maybe a tweet. It's much more deeper. It's like a rabbit hole. You have to see everything, only then you will understand. But in fact, I would rather say that the book Conundrum, which Chandrachud Ghosh and I wrote, whose summary is this book that you talked about, that's where the whole layers will come out, multi-layer. So it's not a simple thing, just by going with one statement. This is the gentleman is saying, this is a classical example that Harvard University Professor Sugato Bose, Netaji's grandnephew, says that Netaji died in a plane crash, everything is bunkum. People do not know that this guy is a politician. People do not know what his own aunt, own family members have said publicly. A person whose real aunt is telling Times of India that he's taken money from Congress. What else do you want me to say? But what else has been said about him privately? These are out in public domain. Own cousins are issuing statement of fellows of Congress stooge. And yet you are, giving me, and you're trying to impress me with the Harvard, surname. Or so he may be a professor in Harvard, but in my country, he's a politician. So please keep that distinction in mind. The guy is not just a historian. He wears different hats. He wears a different hat in your country. He wears a different hat in my country.
So, Anuj, as I read your book, one thought kept coming into my head. Netaji was known for always finding a way to serve the country. I think we can all agree on that.
Yep.
When the British government imprisoned him at home, he famously orchestrated the Great Escape and created an Indian government in exile, which was no easy thing to do. How does a person like that stay hidden and anonymous for decades after independence if we accept the Gumnami Baba theory that you put forward in the book?
Now, there's a short answer, there's a long answer. The long answer is like about 300 pages in the book Conundrum, because then we explain everything, because the reason for not coming out were different in 50s and 60s, 70s, because things became compounded and different. Anyhow, but the short answer would be that he was asked, why are you not coming out? And I will answer because it echoes what you have just said. So he would be asked, why you're not coming out? He would say that my coming out is not in India's national interest. If I come out, people will, be in trouble because of me. And he would say that there's some kind of secret gentleman's agreement, protocol, that the Indian leadership agreed with the British at the time of transfer of power, which was a hoax according to him, and that I would be handed over and I would be tried for war crimes and so on and so forth. So if I come out, they will be, attempts would be made to, put me on trial or something or the other, which people would resist, Indian people. And he would say that India is a very poor country and we have had to stand up on our feet. Such a poor country cannot take on these world powers. So my coming out will not serve any interest. People will suffer because of me. So let me be here. I'm working for the country. So he was there, but he was working, whatever he was doing, he was not sitting quiet. He was covertly, he was active. And, but in short, this is the answer that he thought, assessment he made, his coming out was not in India's interest.
Now,
let me put it this different way. Whenever I used to say this thing earlier, people would tell me as if it's a street fight going on. And the typical way they speak in Hindi in Delhi and other parts of in North India. Who has a gumption? Who can stop Indians? We can do this and that thing and so on and so forth. So I have to remind them, look, what Qatar did to you in the Nupur Sharma case. You cannot even tackle Qatar. How will you? And you're talking about, and people have no idea. I mean, what kind of country we were. I mean, now thanks to whatever Narasimha Rao did, at least you and I are able to do so many things. The life we have lived before that only we know. It was a virtually communist country. No, Indians are much more different. I remember, my friend, a friend of mine, he visited US in 1983, 84, and he went like East Coast to West Coast, and he told us, I remember back in those days, much later, only two things were known, Gandhi and Corrie. That's all. Gandhi, Corrie. Americans had no idea who Indians were. And now imagine when I go, for example, I go into random, restaurant at least in California, and invariably I hear people talking in Hindi. It's so commonplace that people talk in Hindi openly. I'm not talking about some Indian zone. I'm just randomly just walking into any restaurant in California, you'll find people speaking Hindi. Not just those areas of New Jersey where you have all Indians. So things have changed a lot. So please understand, India was a much different country before 85. And India was run by one family. So it was not easy. And we also have to keep in mind that if there were 10 people supporting Netaji, there were 20 who did not support him. Now, if Netaji were to, for example, it's a very bitter thing to say, but this is face the reality. We have to face the reality. Assuming Netaji were to come out, do you think everybody in his own home state would support him? Would have supported? No. You think Netaji was liked by everybody in his home state, Bengal? No. They were, most of them were communist. Hardcore Congress party supporters are there. They still support. The whole intellectual class of Bengal is either Congress supporter or is a Communist Party supporter. Netaji was known as Tojo's dog there. So the man did not even have support system in his own home state. So for him to come out, so he comes out. So we think that the people are going to be very happy with his coming out.
Anuj, when I read the book, I read the book, it seems to me that even you were saying in the book that you don't believe Gumnami Baba's argument about being handed over being the main reason for not coming out. Is that incorrect?
No. What I would say that I'll tell you what he said. Okay. Now I'm a researcher. Now, for example, and I will go by the data eventually. At the end of the day, I will go by the evidence. I will not go by the claim by somebody made. So the whole case that Gumnami Baba is Netaji is based on evidence. It is not based on somebody saying so. So it's based on oral evidence, it's based on documentary, and it's based on forensic evidence. Now, the thing is that when any claim is made, even if it is made by Gumnami Baba, I have to check and cross-check it. So the idea about, he said he was declared a war criminal. I checked it to the extent possible. I checked the records in America, I checked it everywhere. Now, the thing is that from the available records, it is clear that Netaji's name was not put on the list of war criminals. So I have written it as it is. Now, for example, Gumnami Baba made some other claims. I filed a Freedom of Information Act appeal in America with the American intelligence agencies. No, they gave me the answer, which are negative. I put it in my book. I'm very open about it. I'm not going to hide something. It does so many utterances made by Gumnami Baba. I am not finding any evidence for them. So I have been putting them. So either he was wrong, or that some information is still being hidden somewhere, or he was probably given a wrong information, wrong idea. Or maybe, maybe he thought in that sense that when everybody is a war criminal, so he should have been the same, classified. Okay. So in that respect, I'm questioning everybody. So we, in any case, why Gumnami Baba did not come out, it is a different matter altogether. It should not be, this should not become a reason for us to reject the entire theory he was Subhash Bose. Because to accept the view that he was Subhash Bose, we have to go by the evidence. First, establish who this man was. Thereafter, the question is why he was not able to come out, and that's where it becomes very, I would say it's a conundrum. Why, what is happening? So some of the things are making sense to us, others are not. And what I've done, in all fairness, even if this is, which you have caught, someone of your caliber can kick, I have been truthful. Chandrachud and I, if there is something which negates this line, I will put it. So we will not hide anything. Otherwise, anybody in our place would hide information. No. We put everything out, even if it is negating what, But one thing I'm very clear that this man was Netaji, that we are very sure of. The rest of the story is a bit of a conundrum.
So, Anuj, my sense is there are three theories about what happened to Netaji, right? The government stand that he died in the plane crash.
In a plane crash, yeah.
The idea among some people that he was held captive in Russia and then he died in a prison concentration camp there. And the third is that he was Gumnami Baba.
Yeah.
It is obvious from the book that you favor the third theory.
Openly.
And based on what you know today, how can you quantify how confident you are in this?
I'm 100%.
100%?
I'm sticking my
90%?
neck out. Dr. Gupta, I stick my neck out from New York to, east to west coast. I stick my neck out everywhere, publicly,
You are
openly.
100% confident.
I'm 100%. I'm sticking my neck out. I put my life on stake on this issue. And you must appreciate this thing. Once you write, we wrote this book, Conundrum, which is 836 pages. Now, if we have given, and this is all about Subhash Bose and Gumnami Baba death mystery. There's no life and times. We are not like those people who would give you a book about the, for example, there was recently some conspiracy theory about Hitler, not dying in the bunker. Somebody wrote a book. Anyhow, but I saw that book because I believe Advani ji and others were talking about it, and Kamal Hassan. So I saw that book. It has got 12 chapters, and 10 chapters are only about the life and times of Hitler in those days. I'm not concerned. I'm only concerned with the death mystery. So you have only 2 chapters are there. Whenever I have written the book, or Chandu has written the book, you will find only Subhash Bose death mystery. We are not concerned with the life and time, for which there's a separate book. So
yeah,
100%. So 100%. If we have written 836 pages, you would understand. We must have gone through thousands and thousands of pages, and there is so much you can never write down. I mean, this is not an academic issue. This is a political issue here. Now, for the sake of suppose if something was conveyed to me by a former head of the Indian intelligence, you don't expect me to write it down and give a citation there. So there are multiple threats coming to us from different directions, not only from India, from outside, and so I'm convinced that he was there.
No iota of doubt in your mind. Not even.
I'm very clear. I'm very clear, and I convince anybody. It is difficult to convince here on the other. And I would through you, I would urge and request people to organize our talks, because this thing can only be explained. Either you read the book Conundrum in detail. Number one, can't do that, then organize a lecture and talk where Chandrachud and I, either together or individually, will come, and what we do, we will. And it's a PowerPoint. I don't give lectures. I'm not a politician. So what I will do, I will show you the videos and the images. When I tell you the Gumnami Baba handwriting, I'll show you the samples of the handwriting. When I tell you the expert said this, I will show you what the expert said. When I tell you that Atal Bihari Vajpayee said this, I will show you what Atal Bihari Vajpayee said. And I will bring a little bit of humor. I will bring some other stuff here and there, because there are certain things which are very profound. They can't be understood. For example, people think, with regard to Netaji DNA test, I'm talking about the Netaji's remains in Japan, for example. No, government of India hasn't done that till date. The remains are in our custody. People do not know this, that they are in our custody. They are in Japan, but government of India has had their custody since 1951-52, and we pay their temple priest, we pay him some money to keep it. So if you want to get a DNA test done on Subhash's supposed remains in Japan, it can be done tomorrow morning. There's no problem. But the government of India doesn't do it because the reason they know very well why they don't do it. In our country, in cases involving all and sundry, any Tom, Dick and Harry, the tests are done. So I give those examples, that there was a case of involving a certain individual dying in a remote part of the country, and when the bodily remains were dug out, they were not in a condition, so a test had to be done. So the testing was done in American FBI lab. So India is from outside Delhi, some small state, so to speak. They are sending the information data to the American FBI, and American FBI is giving them the result. So India can do it. We have no dearth of resources and all that. Any Tom, Dick and Harry will die. They will go to any extent to resolve the case, and they will spend money like water. So they will do testing for everybody, but Subhash Bose they will not touch. So these examples I can give you in a PowerPoint presentation. I can tell you, and people understand. There are many things which are unsaid. What is legally correct? But some things are now. This is also an issue. For example, people ask me that you say that Netaji was in Russia because Gumnami Baba said he was in Russia. So we don't dispute. We only dispute his death there, as it's conveyed, outlined by General Bakshi and others. Now then, question can be asked that is it? Do you have? Why don't you prove it publicly that he was in Russia, and the whole story will be over? I said no. We don't have a legally admissible evidence. We have intelligence reports. reports from India, from the CIA, which suggest that Netaji was there. I am convinced these reports are genuine. But unfortunately, under the law of the land in India, legally, these reports have no legal evidentiary value. So you have to put, for example, we all know that Dawood Ibrahim is in Pakistan. But legally, it can only be proven when Dawood Ibrahim himself will write an affidavit in a court of law in India saying, my name is Dawood Ibrahim, I live in Karachi. Americans had no legally admissible evidence when they went to Abbottabad in search of Osama bin Laden. Had they come through us, asked one of our courts for permission, they would have never been granted one. Because they would have asked for a legal evidence. Yeah, give me the photographs, show me the whole thing. Americans never had clear evidence, only had intelligence. So these are things which you cannot say in a court of law, but you will understand. So I gave those information data, and I bring it upon, make it a point to give you very important cases from different parts of the world. For example, people have in my country and especially in other parts of the world, they tend to assume that you cannot fudge a DNA test, which happened in our case. I will give you a very clear example. You have no idea how corrupt people are in my country. In a country where they can produce a driving license of Barack Obama, you have no idea what are we capable of. So we are routinely here in India, I give examples, routinely they change reports of DNA testing in our country. And then I give you the clear examples of how Gumnami Baba DNA test reporters fudged by government. Anybody with open mind, and usually I get those open minds in America, not in India, because this issue is slightly difficult to comprehend in our country because it involves, so much of data. Then you're going to Second World War first, and then usually it's a bit difficult. This is a very intellectual issue. My problem is it's a very intellectual issue. So that's why I'm a bit lucky that in America I get good audience, but here it's a bit difficult because people, unless you go to IITs and all that. So through you, I want to request that, people should organize our lectures and talks. So they are very enjoyable. And it's, so people enjoy and it becomes an infotainment. And it's a PowerPoint. And then easier for me to explain, look, this is what happened, and so on and so forth. But through like this Zoom call, it will be difficult for me. I mean, it will be like a rant from my side. I mean, to some.
We have only 2 or 3 minutes left. So let me move on to the last 2 questions. And my second to last question is, there have been epic movies about personalities that were involved in the freedom struggle, whether Indian, like Gandhi, that was funded by the Indian government.
Yeah.
There have been movies on George Washington, on Abraham Lincoln, the famous movie Lincoln. There have been movies about the Second World War that are very sort of from the American perspective, but very globally famous movies. Why has there not been a globally famous movie on Bose or his death, even when the Indian film industry is sort of one of the world's largest film industries?
Because everybody knows there's a problem, political problem. They will not like it. The system, the government will not like it. The Gandhi became possible because most people do not know this thing, especially in America, that Gandhi was a propaganda film funded by government of India. The idea came to Panditji's head and it only happened when Indira Gandhi became the prime minister. But the problem with Netaji, there was no support system. So there was hardly any film when in recent times, but we have had some, changes. For example, there's a web series called Bose Dead and Alive, which has worked quite well with the younger people. It caters to the young audience. There was a Bengali movie I'm very happy to tell you that of all the movies or serials which have been made on Netaji, only 2 have made some money, because such people do not watch these kind of movies easily, especially when it going to cinema halls. Both are inspired by my work. One is, of course, Bose Dead and Alive, which was a web series. Now they have turned into an entire one movie, longish. The other is a Bengali movie called Gumnami, which was a single biggest hit of 2019 and got the national award also. 2 national awards it got. So that is the option. But to go to a bigger level, recently Anupam Kher showed interest. I can take his name. There are other individuals who have shown interest. I can take 2 names. Anupam Kher showed a little bit of interest, but things did not move. And others have also in between, they have important people they have approached, but things have not worked out. So I think in the fullness of time in near future, there will be at least a big budget, because time has come. Now Bollywood now is making such movies in recent times because they have understood. And so I hope and pray it will happen. But as of now, I would urge people to watch a movie called Gumnami. Low budget, but fantastic, got 2 national awards.
Okay. Now my last question to you. You've written several books. I'll be honest with you, I'm very amazed at your productivity how do you find the time to write so many books? But what is the next book you're working on?
No, it's not about product. I mean, I'm doing nothing else. So this thing requires your concentration should be on this. So I am not a book writer. I'm more of an activist. So you're asking what I'm doing? I'm doing activism. So using social media and lectures and talks because this matter we have to settle.
So you are telling me you are not
my aim is my thing is it is possible, and as things stand today, the government may never agree to it. But what I would want to do is, like, for example, in government, the official version in India, if you go by the government records, government declarations, not records give a different story altogether. But the official version is India became free because Mahatma Gandhi, through his power of non-violence, drove the British away. But I know it, people scoff at it, the whole idea, and you see all kind of memes and ludicrous jokes on Gandhiji are on Twitter, and everybody in India knows about this. Ahimsa has no factor in British leaving this country. So likewise, the government's version on the Netaji's death is also not acceptable to people. Most people in India reject the plain cut story. They may be confused with the Russian angle, and Gumnami Baba angle. But the official version, and in fact, what I foresaw this thing, and it has become, of course, now that the Gumnami Baba story, it may not become officially acceptable. Except the government may not, sanctify it, but unofficially people will come to believe in it. Just as they have come to believe that Ahimsa had no role to play, but because Gandhiji is very well known in America, so that's why Indian government wants to talk about it like this.
You are telling me you are not working on any next book?
I'm working on this case. I'm not working on any book. I'm working on. I am actively, I'm pursuing this matter. So my thing is that once I reach a level whereby I have got sufficient new record information, it is only then I think in terms of a new book and all that. So sufficient that data will happen, I'll see. But as of now, I'm constantly involved, active in this, taking this matter further, and I'm more of I've become an activist now. So books are only one part of my activities. The other activities also, in terms of talking to you is very important, because probably this thing will reach more people, because unfortunately people still don't read too many books. In our country, the habit is that they will talk to you about it, but they will watch these kind of lectures and not. But when it comes to buying a book, they will still go and buy a Chetan Bhagat's book, because I do not know why, but people get a kick out of reading stories about people falling in love, even though there's nothing exciting about it. It's very normal things which happen to all of us. So, but that's how it is.
Anuj, let me now thank you for your time. I am very impressed by how you've taken this cause and embraced it. And it seems like this has become your life's purpose now. Thank you very much for talking to us. And thank you very much for sharing about Netaji Bose and his death.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.